All right, so today we're diving into a really provocative article by a writer who goes by the Appalachian Gorilla. It's a fascinating piece that uses the story of one small fading town to make a huge argument about national chain stores and what the author claims is the hollowing out of American culture. Let's get right into it.
So the author kicks things off with just 3 words. The town is dark. And wow, that hits hard, right? It's not just about streetlights. It's about a feeling, an atmosphere. It sets the entire stage for the critique that's about to unfold. You immediately get this sense of decline, of a place that's been forgotten.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the author's portrait of that dark town. Then we'll trace their theory of exactly how a town like that dies. After that, we'll get into the culture of chains, define this wild concept of a new human, and finally, we'll look at the author's very radical one-step solution.
All right, first up, the author doesn't start with broad theories. Instead, they ground this entire argument in the very real, very specific story of a single small town, holding it up as a mirror to what they see happening all across the country.
You can just feel the isolation here, can't you? The picture is so vivid. A tiny town surrounded by miles of nothing, and it's defined more by what's gone, the boarded-up shops, than what's actually there. It really paints a picture of a community being hollowed out from the inside.
And this is where it gets really stark. The author puts what was right next to what is. You know, on one side, you have the soul of a place, a pizza shop run by an Italian family, a local bookstore, a haberdashery. And on the other side, the new reality, a gas station with a Subway inside, a Dollar General. It's not just a change, it's a replacement. And to really bring this home, the author zooms in on just one family, the folks who own that pizza shop. And here's the heartbreaking part. It's not that the kids don't want to take over. It's that they literally can't afford to. The numbers just don't work anymore. And the author suggests this story is playing out in countless towns, a quiet end to the American dream of passing something on.
So how in the world does a town even get to this point? Well, the author doesn't think it's random. They lay out a very specific chain of events, a kind of domino effect that shows how a community can just unravel.
This step-by-step process is absolutely central to the argument. It all starts with the loss of one major local employer, in this case, a quarry. Suddenly, the good-paying jobs are gone. That creates an economic vacuum. And guess what fills it? National chains. They move in, and because they can operate at a scale local shops can't, the mom-and-pop stores start to fall one after another until the original community is effectively pushed out. And this is the final nail in the coffin, according to the article. A demographic shift. The people whose families might have lived there for generations are forced to leave, and a new population, one with no connection to the town's history or traditions, moves in. The transformation is complete, and the town's original identity is gone.
Okay, so that's the economic argument, but the author takes it a step further, connecting all of this to the idea of culture itself. And they do it by talking about something we can all relate to, food.
So here's the big idea. The author argues that what we call American culture isn't really organic anymore. It doesn't bubble up from unique communities and local traditions. Instead, it's mass-produced, packaged, and shipped out by giant corporations, giving us the same exact experience, whether we're in Maine or California.
And this brings us to that headline-grabbing quote. Now, the author isn't saying Chick-fil-A is objectively the best chicken in the world. The argument is way more subtle and way more damning. They're saying that for a huge number of Americans, it's the only version they'll ever really know. It's so dominant that it has replaced the real, authentic thing in our collective minds.
So you gotta ask, right? Why? Why did this happen? Why do the mass-produced versions of things seem to win out over the originals?
Well, the author lays out a few reasons, and it's not just about money. Sure, chains are cheaper, and they're everywhere, so that's a huge part of it. But the author points to something deeper, a cultural disconnect. The idea that we've simply forgotten. We've lost the knowledge passed down through generations about how to cook these foods for ourselves.
Okay, so buckle up, because this is where the argument goes from economics and food to something, well, a lot bigger. The author makes a claim about the very nature of the modern person.
Believe it or not, the author traces this whole thing way back to the Enlightenment, to this idea that you should be able to be a citizen of the world. You know, free from the quirks and demands of local culture, able to live the same life in Paris as you would in Prague.
And that idea, taken to its modern extreme, leads to this term the author coins, Homo Liberalansis.
It's their name for what they see as a new kind of human being, one that's completely uprooted or deracinated, a person with no deep ties to a specific place, heritage, or ancestry.
So what's the big deal? What do we actually lose by becoming this new human? According to the author, the price we pay for this freedom and rootlessness is enormous.
Well, according to the author, we lose pretty much everything that makes us us. Our heritage, our ancestry, our connection to a real community. We lose practical skills, like knowing how to cook. And when we lose that self-sufficiency, the author argues, we're left with only two places to turn for help: the government or a corporation. So after painting this really bleak picture of modern America, you'd expect a complex 12-point plan to fix it all, right? Well, not exactly. The author's proposed solution is breathtakingly simple and radical. That's it. That's the whole plan. No compromises, no regulations, no half measures. Just a complete and total ban on the large chain corporations that the author sees as the source of this cultural decay.
And the goal here, it's all about hitting the reset button. The idea is that if you clear out all the corporate weeds, you create space for something authentic to grow back. You allow local communities and what the author calls healthy folk to rebuild their own economies and cultures from the ground up.
So at the end of the day, the entire article really boils down to this one powerful question for all of us. It forces us to stop and think about the trade-offs we've made, to ask ourselves, what is the real cost of all this convenience? Is the price we pay for a cheap, consistent hamburger everywhere the soul of somewhere?